Welcome back, everyone. It has been an incredible day one at Swish 21, from recruiting tips and strategies for building powerful scouting reports, competitive leadership decisions with Courtney Bankart, and a Q&A with Brad Stevens. There has already been so many gems, and we still have a full day tomorrow, but we are not done yet. In the game of basketball, there is not much that this next guest has not accomplished. If there's an award for it, trust me, she has won it. Most recently, she became an Olympic gold medalist as a coach this year after winning it as a player 3 times. She was the Naismith College Player of the Year at Virginia and an NCAA champion as head coach of the South Carolina Gamecocks. She's a 6-time WNBA All-Star and the 2020 AP Women's Coach of the Year and the 2020 Naismith Coach of the Year. I have to catch my breath because she just has so many different accolades. This is only a fraction of the accomplishments to decorate this absolute legend. But we have a Q&A to do. The one and only Dawn Staley is here at Swish 21. Coach, welcome in. It is an absolute honor to have you.
Honor to be here. Thank you, Taylor, and I look forward to our conversation.
Yes, absolutely. I have been looking forward to this since they told me I was going to be talking to you. And I know that I listed, this abbreviated list of your accomplishments, but you really have done it all. I don't know if everyone in the audience realizes that your decision to start coaching actually came while you were in your prime as a player. From 2000 to 2008, you earned 6 All-Star nods as a player, but also served as the head coach of Temple University women's basketball team. So please tell me about that experience and why you wanted to do both at once.
As I reflect on how I got into coaching, and that's 21, 22 years ago, I never wanted to be a coach a day in my life. And I have to give credit where credit is due. The late, great, he was our AD, Dave O'Brien, asked me if I had any interest in his open women's basketball position. We had a mutual friend, and the mutual friend kept texting me saying, "Are you interested?" And I'm like, "No, I'm not. No, I'm not interested." I mean, they would like text me almost every day asking, and I'm like, "No, I'm not interested. No, I'm not interested." And then in 2000, the Final Four was in Philadelphia. I was with the national team, so we did a scrimmage in Philly. So I'm like, I'm gonna be there. He was like, well, why don't you just come over and talk to me? And I actually got somebody drove me to Temple. I had on maybe a pair of jeans and a t-shirt or whatever. And I sat down with him and he asked me 2 questions. One was, can I lead? And I'm looking around like, my position is a point guard. So I believe I could check that box and say that I'm a leader. I was a captain on every team that I've been on. So I think I can lead a little bit. And then he asked me this other question that caught me off guard a little bit. He said, can you turn Temple women's basketball program around? I'm like, ooh, that's a challenge. And I'm drawn to challenges, and I wasn't expecting that. And immediately, I was drawn to wanting to coach. Not having any coaching experience in my life, I was drawn to it. So I played along. I didn't let him know that was the very thing that attracted me to coaching Temple University. But this is what he did. He said, do you mind walking down the hall with me to meet some other people? I'm like, sure, I'm here. So we walked down the hall and into a conference room where there were like 10 to 12 people sitting around this conference table, and they sit me at the head of the table, and they started firing off questions to me, and I'm answering them just as frank. They're asking me, where do I see myself in 5 years? And I said, well, playing in the WNBA. They asked me, don't you see yourself coaching? I was like, no. They were like, don't, Coach Chaney has coached for, I don't know, 30 years at the time. Don't you see yourself? I'm like, no, I sure don't. And I was that frank because I didn't really want a job. I was in the prime of my career. But I didn't know that was like their search committee. That was the committee that was going to select who was going to be their coach. And I was on an interview without knowing I was on an interview. But needless to say, 2 weeks later, I took the job, and I was able to, I was on one hand a coach and the other hand a player, and I got the best of both worlds of doing it because I can turn on and off one side of my brain at different times of the year. And I truly enjoyed it because it gave me instant credibility in the locker room, because instead of me going out on a recruiting trail, yeah, recruits can come see me play in the WNBA. My players at Temple used to come and watch me in the WNBA. Obviously, they became critics of my game because if I turned the ball over, they would say the same things that I said to them while turning the ball over. So it was a cool dynamic of doing both. And I would say any WNBA player that has an opportunity to do it, they should do it, because it leads you right into the very thing that I'm doing for, the next 15 years after I retired is coaching. And it made it a smooth transition. So I enjoy that part of my life.
Yeah, and definitely the balance that it took to be able to excel at both of those things is fascinating. You said something really interesting that I want you to expand on, that you were always drawn to challenges. Like the fact that you wanted to turn this basketball program around was a challenge that made you want to do it. I don't know if most coaches initially feel like they want the challenge for that first job. Would you agree? And have you always been that way?
Well, I mean, I've always been drawn to something that someone says I couldn't do. Now, I got to give you a little bit backstory, because before making a decision like that, because that is life altering, life changing profession that you have to go into, and you're responsible for 18 to 22-year-olds, and I was closer to their age than their parents. So I called Tar Vanderveer. And I said, hey, Tar, Temple offered me this position, this coaching position. What do you think? She was like, nope, don't do it. Nope, don't do it. And that pushed me more towards coaching, because she said no. I don't think she was doing it to pique my interest in anymore. I think she was doing it because she knew the commitment that it would take for me to be a coach and do it as a player. But there was something about it. Even Lisa Boyer, who is our associate head coach here at South Carolina, she was with me for 6 of those 8 years at Temple, who was a great friend of mine. I asked her, I was like, Boyer, should I take this job? She was like, no, you don't want that to be your first coaching experience. And again, all of these no's just pushed me towards taking it. And honestly, it was the best decision that I've made in my life, because it became like second skin. To be able to be a dream merchant for young people is something that I'm drawn to. Like, I got the best. I have had the best career, and I'm not saying because I've had success with it, but everything that embodies being successful, I've experienced it. That's failures, that's highs, that's lows, that's emotions. All of these things embody being successful, but the only thing that people really see is the success. So they want to emulate that without really understanding what it takes. And it has to have a want. Like, I had to have that want, that challenge for me to hold my interest. And then if you stay in this profession long enough, different challenges. Like, I spent 8 years at Temple. I thought we took Temple as far as Temple can go. It's under us, meaning we would go to the NCAA tournament. We either won or lost in the first or second round. And if you are a person that loves challenges, my challenge was, how do I get to the national championship? How do we win a national championship? What do I need to do? And then actually South Carolina opened up, where it was a challenge of coming into the SEC to coach against the Pat Summits, the Andy Landers, the Melanie Balcombs, all of those legendary coaches who have either won a national championship, been to the Final Four, won SEC championships. I had that that desire, that challenge to want to see, where I measure up against some of the greats. And it pulls on you as you get to different stages of your life. This game creates aspirations. If you stay in it long enough, and if you're doing it for the right reason, it will create other aspirations. Again, and look, I just finished up being the head coach of an Olympic team. So if I did not get into coaching at Temple, I would not have aspired to become an assistant coach of an Olympic team, nor the head coach of an Olympic team.
Yeah, and I would love to talk, more about coaching at the Olympics, because I mean that is, the height of all heights. And the USA roster, it looked more like a future Hall of Fame ballot than an actual roster. So how was it coaching players like Diana Taurasi and Sue Bird, who are two of the best to ever do it, but also young stars that will be on this stage for years to come, like Breanna Stewart, and of course your former Gamecock, A'ja Wilson.
It looks easy. Like if you are a fan, if you are a WNBA player looking at the Olympic Games, or if you are a coach looking at the Olympic Games, anybody can say, "Oh, that's pretty easy. I can do that." Well, I don't think anybody can do that. I think anybody can coach probably the X and O's of it, because once you are in the locker room or on the court with great basketball minds like Sue Bird, Diana Taurasi, like Breanna Stewart, like A'ja Wilson, they're not looking for you to coach them up every second of every play. They understand how to play. You just need to be detail oriented, and there are just different times in a game. You need to pretty much, as a coach, impose your will and your ideas and be detailed in it and tell them what to do. They just need a little direction here or there at different times. If you're a coach that wants to overcoach, turn off. It will be a turn off. If you're a coach that got in the way, like, you have to get out of the way, and you got to know when to get in the way, and you have to feel it. I'm very fortunate that I've been where those players were out there on the court, so I understand what we want from coaches. And we want just a nudge here or there. We don't want you to direct, like on the collegiate level, you have to give a lot more direction to young people because they don't see the big picture. Well, these pros, they see the big picture, they see the details, they just have so many options. They want you to say, hey, this is the option that's more open than the others. And I just had an incredible time, because you know, even as a coach, you're still learning, you're still growing, you're still taking information from the pros, and you want to take it back, bottle it up, and give it to your aspiring college team, and just different little nuances that I picked up to give to some of our younger players who want to be where A'ja Wilson and where Breanna Stewart and where Sue Bird and Diana Taurasi are, because they're the cream of the crop. They really understand how to play the game, and not just how to play the game, how to do it efficiently. They don't take more steps than needed. They take the right amount of steps, because you know, when you are older, you don't want to take an extra step. You don't have very much tread on your tires, so you want to save them for those big moments.
Yeah, absolutely. I agree with that. It was a joy to watch you guys at the Olympics. So congratulations on that. Now, you know, most people would kill to just have one of your careers, but being that you've reached the pinnacle of a career in sports, inducted into the Hall of Fame, and that was before winning the 2017 NCAA championship, before earning four different Coach of the Year awards in 2020, and before coaching that USA team to a gold medal. Where does that drive come from to be the best? Because you are one of the few people that can say that really is, you know, the level that I reached.
Well, to be quite honest, I really don't care about those awards. I don't. I mean, they're great. You know, they're great to, you know, put on your resume, and I don't. I think I have a debt to repay to basketball. I look at it like that. Like, I've been given so much. I've been, incredibly blessed to have the people around me. I've had great coaching staffs, and still to this day, I think that's probably the biggest secret of my success is the people that I've chosen to be around me, because they're not yes people. We have knockout dragouts, talking about basketball, talking about what direction we need to take our team. And I love that interaction. I love the fact that we can actually argue about certain things, because I want them to be sure about, if this is the way we need to go, this is the way we need to go. But I just feel like I want to give, I want basketball to be proud of me. Like, really, I want basketball to say, hey, this young lady is giving up. This young lady has sacrificed. This young lady only wants the best for other people. She's selfless. So let me arm her with what she needs to be successful. And at the same time, this is me in basketball. We're pushing, we're pulling, but the most important thing, I want to see it play in its purest form: selflessness, egoless, togetherness. And that is my drive, to see basketball played in a beautiful way.
Yeah, you mentioned something that I think is important, especially for all the coaches that I know are listening right now, is how vital your coaching staff has been. What is the best advice that you have for, finding the right staff?
That's hard. That's hard. And like I would say to the first time head coaches, you're probably not going to get your staff right the first time. You're not. You'll have some turnover. I had a lot of turnover very early on in my career for one reason or another. One is people have gone on to be head coaches. Two, they're just not a great fit. And I think you have to look at the entire dynamic of your staff, meaning one, we all have to work together. We don't all have to agree, but we have to agree to disagree agreeably at times.
Mm-hmm.
You have to bring stuff to the table. You can't rely on other people to do your job. And I would say there's a certain possessiveness when it comes to being an assistant coach. It is. I've been an assistant coach for Olympic teams, but none on a collegiate level. So you have to allow people to be great with what they're great in, but you also have to, whatever they're lacking, whatever their weaknesses is, you have to figure out how to get them in a place where they're elevating that part of it. But I think you have to have a staff that recognizes each other's strengths and weaknesses, and we play off of that. But I would say the single most thing that is has been that enhanced my career is our ability to keep coaches. Like, we have continuity in our staff. We've been together for a long time. Coach Boyer's been with me. I'm going on my 22nd year coaching. She's been with me. She's going on her 20 years coaching with me. So there's stability there. Fred Shamil, he's been with me, I believe, 7-8 years here at South Carolina, but he also spent 2 years with me at Temple. Jolette Law has been with me now for 5-6 years. So all of our support staff, they've been with me here at South Carolina for the 13 years that we've been here, and going on 14 years. So that's a big part of it. And I do believe that all of the staff members, coaches, they can go to other places and actually probably do better, make more money. But they choose to be in this environment where it's family oriented, but it's pressure packed, and they like to work under pressure, and they like to perform under pressure. So, I mean, getting a staff, you just have to really make sure that you communicate, you talk about things, because if you don't, people are going to start assuming that this is the way it's supposed to be. And then they'll start getting in their heads about, no, that's her job. No, that's my job. Communicate. And I do believe it'll clear up a lot of stuff, but I've been very fortunate that I've had staff members who have been the best at what they did. And we got a former Globetrotter. We got 2 coaches on our staff that's coached in the WNBA. So, when it comes to staffs, I think we got the best, and the best is we work extremely well together.
I love that. I love that. When you look at yourself as a coach, what is one thing that you always thought you would do a certain way that turns out you actually do differently? Because I'm sure once you get into actually the position, nothing is really the way that you thought.
Right. Well, I don't really look at myself as a coach.
Okay.
Yeah, so that's the crazy thing about it. I look at myself as, someone that is a I aid people, I assist people. Like, I look at myself as a point guard. I do. Like, I've been a point guard my entire life, whether I am on the court or off the court. So my vision is always to make other people better. I would say this. I had, and I'm gonna probably make myself look bad here, and that's okay, because I learned. I had a point guard a couple of years ago when I first got to South Carolina. I really wanted her to be our starting point guard. And I wanted her to be my starting point guard so bad that I just kept pouring into her. And pouring into her is probably, I was a little too hard on her. Because I knew where she could take us, rather than, like, there was a senior point guard that was here. I knew what she could do. Like, I didn't think she could take us to the next level. So somebody like that, I thought, coming off the bench, just more steady, predictable, I thought it would be great. But having this freshman point guard start, I thought she could blossom a lot quicker, being in that starting role. So I would talk to her from time to time. But then we got to a point where she didn't like me very, very much, because I was too hard on her. So again, after her first year, we wrapped up the season. I sat down, I talked to her. I said, I was pushing you so hard because I wanted you to start. And I apologized to her because I made her cry a couple of times in practice, because I was just so hard on her. And then she said something that I wasn't expecting, which was, she said, I wasn't ready. Now, I wish I had heard that a little bit earlier, and I would have let up. Yeah. But she said I wasn't ready. But after that first year, I felt there was a strain between us and our relationship because of what happened in her freshman year. We're friends and we talk and we converse, but I just felt like, if I would have just let up a little bit, maybe she would have had a better understanding, and the trust wouldn't have been broken. And I don't like to break trust in young people, because it's hard to gain it. It's very easy to lose it. So, but once you've lost it, it's tough. And I just don't like that feeling in my point guards or any player that I'm coaching. I always want to keep just my hand on them a little bit. Just so I know that we have that connection. I don't ever want to take my hands off of them, because I don't want them to feel like I've given up on them or I don't trust them. Now, it doesn't mean that I don't show them tough love, because I'm always going to do that, but I just don't take it as far as I took it. So that's probably one of the things that I learned, trial and error. There are a number of ways to do this thing. And I did not utilize my point guard skills when it came to her in particular, but everybody after that, reaped the benefits of her being screamed and yelled at.
Yeah, absolutely. No, I think that's a really important anecdote, and it really takes a lot of self-awareness to say, okay, this is what I did wrong, and next time I know that I can improve upon that. Just a couple more for you before you let you go. Just from a general sense, right? When you talk about things that you learned from, things that you want to get better at, for the coaches that are on the line, what advice would you give if you do run into, a situation similar to that, where you're you're doing this push-pull and you're trying to figure out how to approach this player, telling them that you believe in them, that you want this for them. Because you could maybe argue that sometimes having that conversation could allow that player to tell you maybe at that moment they weren't ready. So what advice would you give for that situation?
I mean, you just hit the nail on its head. It's communication. Like it is, I find that in being in this profession and being a dream merchant for young people, the biggest thing is you have to have the biggest voice in their lives, meaning they have so many things competing for their time. Social media is one of them. Now we have to add the NIL to it on a collegiate level. Then you have their friends. You even have their parents who are all saying stuff that's filling their head with something.
Yeah.
For us and our coaching staff, we have to fill their heads with our voices, calling them, texting them. Like we have 16 players. That's a lot. So what we do here at South Carolina is the three coaches, we divide our team up in the three teams. Now, they don't know this. The players don't know this themselves, but they're responsible for their group of players, or our team, our players. Me, now I go in and out of, their teams. And then I also have the parents. So and we have a monthly parent, like a parent Zoom, where we're just informing the parents, this is what we're doing. We'll tell them about some away games. We'll tell them about COVID. We'll tell them about how their children are doing. We give them an opportunity to talk to us about anything that they feel that's going on. And then, it is where we got all of them. And we're also shaping the parents into what they need to hear and what they need to act on or what not to act on. Because sometimes when your child is talking to you, they want you to be their parent. They don't want you to, take that information and go right back to the coaches and say, hey, my child's unhappy. No, your child is taking the information and how she's feeling to her mom or dad. So be a mom or dad and comfort, not necessarily come fight their battles, because, they're just putting it in the appropriate places, because they could be giving it to somebody else that's not going to give them the right information to combat what's happening. So communication is key. I can be the best version of me as a coach when my players can be direct with me. Like, I want to know if you're here, like if you're present, like, because if you're not, you need to be where your mind is. And I'm okay if your mind is on schoolwork. Hey, I'm okay wherever your mind is. But if it's not on basketball during the time that we're practicing, then you probably need to go where your mind is, because these players here, their minds are on practice, and we don't really need a distraction. So I'm good with that. Sometimes they need, in the NBA, they call it load management.
Yep.
on the collegiate level, we call it just, you need a mental day.
Yep.
And I'm good with that. I really am good with that. It's just so you don't slow the process down. Here in South Carolina, we have something called objective-based study hall. And that is, you got 8 hours of study hall. Or no, sorry, 8 hours if you want to mess around. But the objective-based study hall is, you got 2 things that you got to cover in each of your classes. 2 things. Mm-hmm. Once you meet with your academic advisor and they're able to check off those things, if you're done with study hall in the first 2 days of the week, you're done. Because because if we just string them along and you got to go, you're done Monday, Tuesday, you're done on Tuesday, and study hall's not over until Thursday. Well, guess what they're going to do Wednesday, Thursday if you're done with your work? Bother somebody else. So leave and let these other players take care of their business. So it's more like that. And I'm okay with it. I know some coaches may get mad. Well, she should be here practice. We should make her fight through. I mean, nowadays these kids, they need mental days. And I'm okay with that. They'll pick it back up. They'll be more refreshed when they come back. And we have to bend a little bit with this day and age of player.
No, I think that's so important. And a term that you have used a couple of times during this conversation is dream merchant. Can you explain that term and also just kind of the rewards that you get from being that to so many young women?
Being a dream merchant is this. Like I've accomplished all of my dreams, all of my goals that I set out for myself, and they feel really good. Like I feel accomplished. So for me being in this position of being our team's leader, I feel is only right that when I sit down in your living room and I give you my spiel on South Carolina and give you my spiel on where I see you and give my spiel on what I think your future could be, and me guiding you towards that, I am a servant of them. So I am giving them, I'm giving them a plan for them to be successful. And I just think it's only right for me to be in this position, being a dream merchant for my players. I know what it is to succeed. I know what kind of work ethic it takes. I know what kind of mentality it takes. I've been there, I've done it, and they don't always get it. They don't always get it the first time around or the second time around. But I got enough stamina in me to say, hey, you falling off the wagon right here. Let's hop back on, and let's just continue down your journey of success. And it doesn't mean that it's all gonna be, hunky dory. There's gonna be twists and turns, and I say this as well. If you're uncomfortable, there is growth taking place. If you're uncomfortable, like more times than not, your freshman and sophomore years are years of figuring things out. By the time you're a junior, you should already know this thing should be like this. By the time you're a senior, you already know. So you should be getting the other players ready. So that's how I know if I'm doing my job correctly once they turn seniors. And if they can do it before then, great. They probably put in some extra work to get there a lot sooner than in your junior year. So that is being a dream merchant for young people, is to show them how to be successful. Not, not just in basketball, the same variables that we learned throughout our day, just throughout our careers, being disciplined, sacrificing, communicating. All of those things are important variables to be successful, and we don't let them off the hook on or off the court when it comes to that.
I love that. I love that term, dream merchant. Well, last question for you, and this is more so just something I want to say. I think one of my favorite things about you is all the fun that you have. I always see stuff of you dancing and joking around and just like having a great time. So just talk about the importance of why it is vital to just still have fun as a coach.
I think I think it's important that you still instill in your players, give everything its own place. I just encourage our players to do that. Whether it's, like if you're on the court, you can't catch and move, and you can't do all of that at once. So give everything its own place. Give catching its own place. Get squaring up its own place. Get dribbling its own place. And for us, whatever you're feeling in the moment, like if something funny happens in practice, I'm gonna crack up. I am. I don't care how serious it is. I'm gonna laugh.
Yeah.
But then I'm gonna turn the page and get right back into business. And that is what life is all about. You got to be able to turn the page no matter what it is. You can't stay on the same page for, for a long time because life moves. I think one of the greatest things that I take from my experience working with the very best of our game is that they turn the page quickly, whether it's a great play or whether it's a botched play. It's on to the next thing. And they don't spend a whole lot of time standing in that moment thinking about it. And they've trained their minds to do that. And I think a lot of people don't understand mental. Tara Vanderveer told me this. Mental is the physical as 4 is to 1. Like you have to be 4 times as good mentally than you are physically. And I'm a firm believer in that because at some point everybody gets tired during the course of a season. The teams that are able to play through being tired are the strongest mentally. And they're the ones that's probably going to end up, with the confetti coming down and raising some hardware. So, but you have to work on that throughout the entire season. You have to build that like you build physical strength up. You have to build mental strength up.
Yeah.
And I think sometimes we don't give that mental space enough time to develop and grow. So if anything happens, I like to, and like if we're working on a press breaker, I like to put our players in the worst possible position on the floor. That's probably, in the corner, inbounding the ball, being trapped. How are you going to get yourself out of that? Like, I want them comfortable in that position because if they get out of that position, well, we got an advantage going down the other end. We got a huge advantage. So embracing being uncomfortable, making yourself comfortable in the worst situation means that once you get out of it, things look a lot easier once you're able to get yourself out of that situation. So, I mean, it's pretty cool to be able to, to work with young people, to guide them, to laugh with them, to grow with them and their parents, because we know it takes a village for a young person to be successful.
Yes, absolutely. Well, I have learned so much from this conversation. There's so many things you said I'm going to carry with me. So no, thank you for so many of your just thoughtful and very introspective answers. And I'm so happy that you were able to join us. So thank you so much for your time and most importantly, your energy.
Thank you. Appreciate it.
And thank you all for watching along with us. What an incredible way to put a bow on day 1 of Swish 21. We'll be back tomorrow with even more awesome content and sessions from around the basketball universe. Tune in for San Jose State's men's head coach, Tim Miles' session as he breaks down his motion offense, the analytics session with Jordan Sperber and Gibson Piper, and many more exciting speakers and topics. And I will see you then.